Most advertisers want their ads to show up as high on the page as possible. Here's how they get there. Let's say Paul Bond Boot wants its ad to appear when someone does a search for ostrich boots. Maybe Bond Boot is willing to pay $1 for every click on their link. So that's what they bid on those keywords. But there's more to it than price. Google's algorithm also gives a quality score to each advertiser's website.
You can't buy your way to the top if your ad isn't relevant.
David Fisher is Google's vice president for global online sales.
An advertiser who chooses the right set of keywords and shows really relevant ads can actually appear right at the top and actually be paying less than some of the advertisers who appear below them because their ad is so relevant. Our system actually rewards that. There he is. He shows up in the top slot.
And that's what happens with Paul Bond Boot. They may have a modest ad budget, but Google often pushes them to the top because of the quality of their website.
What AdWords does is it creates a level playing field for everyone from the smallest mom-and-pop business up to the largest Fortune 500 company and lets them compete alongside each other.
Advertisers can also adjust their campaigns down to the pennies they spend, the minutes they advertise, and the zip codes where they show.
You actually are presented with a map and all kinds of ways of determining where you want to advertise. In the moment, I have it primarily set by country because we're trying to control budget.
This is very addictive because it enables you to watch all of the activities of your customer.
You are exactly right.
It's a constant scorecard.
It becomes kind of a game that you're playing.
Like most AdWords users, George Bond manages the advertising himself, and it's obviously working. Maybe too well. Sometimes he literally has to shut it off.
Google could overwhelm us quickly.
How will Google overwhelm?
Given the indicated figures, it could double the number of orders coming in. There is far more out there available to us if we decide to extend the budget further. There's a lot more out there.
Right now, the Bonds have a 4-month waiting list for new custom boots.
Your boots will be there in about 3 days. How about that?
That looks good.
Paul Bond couldn't have imagined Google when he started making cowboy boots back in the early 30s. But not even this tiny shop in an Arizona border town is beyond the reach of the Internet's most powerful presence.
Respond for unknown emergency.
It helps us do our job faster by helping us retrieve information quicker. So if I want to see abandoned buildings, I click on an abandoned building layer, and then it becomes enabled on my map.
High noon, and the Washington, D.C. Fire Department is responding to a possible explosion. On board, they've got radios, first aid gear, and the latest firefighting tool, Google. That's right, Google.
It helps us do our job faster by helping us retrieve information quicker, and it also gives us a reference point on a map.
Deputy Chief Dimitrios Vlasopoulos isn't talking about Google's search engine, but a customized version of its mapping program, Google Earth.
So if I want to see abandoned buildings, I click on an abandoned building layer, and then it becomes enabled on my map.
It also shows the location of every fire hydrant, fire truck, and EMS unit in the city, all in real time.
The hydrant layer is telling us not only where the hydrants are, but whether they're in service or out of service. If they're out of service, we can't use them, so we're not even going to waste our time with it.
Google Earth is part of a software package the city of D.C. buys called Google Applications. Apps for short. Unlike most office software, Apps isn't installed on individual computers, but on Google servers, accessed through the internet. It's an idea called cloud computing.
Tell me what the concept of cloud computing is.
Cloud computing means you get your technology from the cloud, from somewhere else. Instead of having to install computers and software and manage it all yourself, you get it in the cloud.
Dave Gerard is president of Google Enterprise. His job is to sell customized Google apps like Gmail, Search, and Google Earth to businesses, schools, and governments.
In the old world, you pay a lot of money up front, and then you pay somebody else to install it, and then you pay somebody else to patch it when there's security problems or manage it, and then you go through another whole set of problems when it's time to upgrade to the new version. In this world, all that disappears.
DC officials say Google Apps has saved taxpayers more than $3 million in its first year alone. With a growing list of customers like Genentech and Motorola, Apps is turning a profit for Google, but a relatively small one. What may be keeping it from growing even bigger is the fear among some companies of entrusting their data to Google servers.
What if companies, institutions are hesitant to give sensitive information about intellectual property on the Google Cloud?
There is an element of trust required that there's just no getting around. You know, companies have to trust somebody. They trust their accountants, they trust their lawyers, they trust the phone company to transmit their phone calls. And at some point, they will become more and more comfortable with companies holding their data in their servers.
10 years ago, most of us had barely heard of Google, much less considered entrusting it with our most valuable information. Today, it is growing in size and ambition as this once unknown startup keeps moving into so many aspects of our lives.
Do a search for the phrase Google's future, and you'll get more than 1 million results. But none of them can answer the company's most pressing questions. Could it become too big for its own good? How much more can it improve its search engine? Can it continue to protect our privacy and its future? One thing's for sure, this is Google, and everyone will be watching. I'm Maria Bartiromo. Thanks for joining us.